I want to go to Jeff Landry right now. So speaking about Wall Street firms and all the duress that they're under right now, he's the Louisiana Republican Attorney General. And Attorney General, I know you're looking at this initiative on the part of many of the premier investment banks into what is called politically correct or woke investments at the expense of other investments. You're worried about it. Maybe you can elaborate.
Yes, I'm completely concerned about it. What we've seen is really predatory financial banking investments under the disguise, I believe, of ESG policies. What we saw was that BlackRock basically took down some financial positions in Exxon, only to then invest in PetroChina, to invest in the same type of oil fields. And so, again, the question is, whether they pushed investors into ESG financial investments, are those investments actually going to return the types of returns that those in, say, retirement funds, like in Louisiana, are expecting? Or shouldn't we be continuing down the normal trend, traditional investment portfolios? Again, this goes to where investment groups like BlackRock want to be able to basically say, listen, we want you to invest based upon policy and not upon sound fundamental monetary policy.
So, Attorney General, one of the things that BlackRock and these other firms that aspire to this is that it doesn't mean that they don't invest in energy companies. It doesn't mean that they don't invest in some of these more traditional companies. I think there's sort of like a dichotomy there. What they recommend versus how they perform for various state municipal pension funds is very different. What do you say to that?
Well, that's not their fiduciary duty. Their fiduciary duty is to return the maximum amount back to those who are putting into the retirement system, right? Their advice is supposed to be able to say, look, these are good, sound investment policies. They're not out there trying to determine environmental policies or social policies. They're supposed to be returning money to the investors. The job of social policying happens in government, happens in Congress, happens in state legislatures. Again, this was what happens, Neil, when banks become too big. Remember, I went into Congress in 2010 when there was a too big to fail happen. And so now what we've seen is these investment banks are so big now, they're bigger than the government. And they want to determine social policying here in this country and around the world. And the question is whether they're taking investment dollars and using those to enhance that social policy, or actually giving the investor the return that they deserve.
So the irony would have been, right, Attorney General, that had they been fully invested or invested a lot more in traditional energy companies that have been making money hand over fist for their clients, of course, if some of them skewed that, then they didn't make nearly as much money.
That's correct. And that's what we're going to be looking into. There are a number of attorney generals that are extremely interested in this, especially because it's our job to protect the pension plan holders in our particular states. And so if these investment firms are steering those dollars into unsound investments, unproven investments, such as their green energy portfolios that have not returned anything near what the traditional energy companies have, then they have a problem.
Very well said. Or keep us posted on this. Louisiana's Attorney General Jeff Landry.